sealed. And regarding the raccoons, I'm afraid that
holes in the roof are legally sealed, and the door with the lock that's broken open every other day, that's not legally sealed.
Duly noted. That building, I do believe, has violations for failure to maintain, and I looked at it myself. I do know the status of the building. In general, there are other properties as well in this and every neighborhood that are in various states of disrepair. And as the current economic cycle goes forward, my inspectors are trying to address this with the Department of Buildings. We are all over the borough dealing with vacant and foreclosed properties that are not being maintained. When we see there are structural risk, I have no hesitation dropping them to the ground when necessary. That particular building does not need that. But we are monitoring them. My first concern is always if you feel any building is structurally compromised, 311 and my inspectors will route it and inspect it. If they feel there's a problem, they'll get an engineer to verify it. If necessary, they'll drop it.
I'm going to look again because the roof looks like it's going to collapse. So I will call 311 and request again that they come. The roof is going to collapse. That's a fact.
Again, I know that property. I have checked it out, and it is structurally sound. Not the most beautiful thing in the world, but it is there.
What about the odor and the health risk?
Again, the health risk is what it is. Sanitation can write violations for this. Again, with 311, given the various wildlife and wild farm animals living in the neighborhood, odor is not the only area here.
And my next question, I live on Canton Court and a new structure was put up. The block is sinking since it was put up. And the city's answer to having a sewer problem is to build a sort of trough where the water flows down to the sewer. Well, when it sinks, it doesn't go to the end. It stops in front of people's homes, carries the garbage to certain homes. One of them is mine. And it is sinking further and further.
I think there are two issues here. One is, from the building's perspective, I'll take that. Primarily, again, 311 to let me know regarding...
All that numerous times.
I don't know which address that is, but if you want to know, let me look at it. I'll have it looked at. Obviously, as discussed earlier, Garrettson's history makes the streets very difficult. Essentially, in the 20s, it was built with an elevation of about 3. In the 1950s, they raised the streets and to where they are today. And this area, Sheepshead Bay, and several other areas, the buildings are actually several feet below the street grade.
Building a trough through the streets is not the answer.
Actually, that's for DOT. I do believe that is the standard engineering solution, but I'll leave that to DOT.
Thank you.
No,
Hello, it's me again. I want to address the Parks Department official. I have questions for him.
I think they're going to be doing the Parks Department actually separate from this section. And so when questions are done for us, yeah, no, yeah.
All right.
You want to go for it?
I want to know.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is there any more questions for DOT or buildings while they're here? Then we're going to bring up 20 questions. We have the Parks Department here. I'm going to let them, Fred Wilkins from Marine Park, come up and introduce his team and let them explain White Island or Mount Island, as I call it. All right? And then we'll let them do their presentation, and then we'll take some questions. We'll probably stay here until around 8:45. Hopefully I've answered everybody's questions. All right, Fred.
Good evening. Sorry about that. This is Mike Keller. He's with that Natural Resource Group. This is Dennis Flynn. He's with architect. Big Hollow Marty as well.
Okay.
Hello? So I say, my name is Dennis Flynn. I'm the project manager for the reconstruction of White Island, and I understand there's a lot of, concerned people about what the work that's going on out there now, and I want to apologize first of all for not coming here sooner. The process in which we're going forward on this is a little bit different than we normally do a capital project. Just to give you a little bit of background, the work that's going out there now is part of mitigation work for another project that wasn't a Parks Department project. It wasn't a Parks Department project for work that's going on along the Bell Parkway. So back about, I want to say 10 years ago, Parks was given the responsibility of reconstructing the island. There was an attempt made about 10 years ago, and sort of the island was cleared, and then it got to a certain point when we realized we were hoping to get free sand from dredging projects, and then it was found out that we weren't going to be able to get it, and then based on the funding, we just didn't have enough money to complete the project at that time. We fast forward, we jump 10 years from now, or 10 years, and we're at a point now where it's a DEC, or Environmental Conservation mandated project, which we were given the responsibility for the reconstruction and creation of a grassland habitat, which you see here at White Island. The work that you see going on there now, it's only, if you want to look at it, almost as like a two-phase project. What we kind of need in terms for the design of the reconstruction of the island is we need an updated survey. So because the island is so heavily vegetated with phragmites and trees and shrubs, the vegetation right now is just so dense. So the work that anyone has seen is going on now is actually, if you want to call it, prepping the island so we can get a survey done, which will then be used for redesign, if you want to consider it the second phase. So within this phase, basically what we're doing is, if you went up to about, it's called a 10-foot contour, in this phase we're going to be clearing all the phragmites, the trees, the shrubs, except for there's two existing grassland areas, one along here, and there's two other small ones in this area. Those will be kept as is. So within this phase, what we'll do is we're going to clear the vegetation, have a survey come in, and then with that survey, then we can give it to, we have a consultant working on the redesign of the island, and then with that, we could then go forward with our submittals to Department of Environmental Conservation. We're kind of at a sort of a standstill right now because any preliminary submissions that we've made to DC, they will not give comments back until they get the updated survey. So it's kind of like a catch-22. But the overall, if you want to say the overall scope of the project within the redesign would to be then create an overall grassland habitat for migrating birds. But the other portion of the project was also is, if you remember, probably about 6 or 7 years ago, there was an emergency contract that was put out in order because there were parts of the island that were breached and garbage was leaking out. It was really a temporary solution, so within this phase what we're looking to do is do a much more permanent solution. Some of it might be through with natural vegetation. Other parts where the sides of the island are steeper, we'll go more with possibly like a riprap or stone. And it has to be done that way because the steepness of the slopes. Like I said, at this point it's a little bit different because we don't have any finalized plans, but it's more, I guess tonight's more of like an update of the work that's going on there now.